Hi everyone, I'm Anne and in this video I share how I made this dog portrait with pen and watercolor. I start with the pen application. I use an 003 fineliner on hot pressed watercolor paper. It's very important that the pen is waterproof or else the ink will bleed when I apply the watercolor application. Actually, it's quite simple to draw animals like this. Just draw the fur in the direction that it grows on the animal. Not only does this look more natural, it also creates the illusion of form. It'll give the dog its shape. This dog is mostly black with some patches of brown and white. Most people struggle with black fur. They just fill in the whole animal with black, but then it looks flat. If you look closely to the reference, you see that the black fur also has highlights and shadows. I make the pen application just a little more dense in the areas of shadow and leave more white space in between my marks where the fur catches more light. For the darker areas, I sometimes grab a thicker 01 fineliner to really deepen those shadows. Don't get too dark too soon, because you can always go back and darken some areas later on, but you can't make an area lighter. It might look like I'm jumping from one area to the other, but I find it easier to map out the darker areas first and then fill in the lighter parts in between. That way I don't get lost in all the details and I can better judge my highlights and shadows. It's also important to look at the length of the fur. Here on the snout it's much shorter than on the ears or the chest of the dog. Just make shorter marks, almost short dashes or dots where the fur is shorter and longer strokes where the fur is longer. Try to imitate the length of the fur with your pen strokes in order to capture the likeness of the animal as best as you can. The nose itself has a different texture than the fur, of course. I want to emphasize that difference with stippling. I establish the right value of the nose by placing a lot of little dots on the paper. The closer you place the dots together, the darker the value becomes. The same applies here, pay close attention to your reference. Right under the nostrils there is a highlight you don't want to ignore, it will give the nose its shape. I want to establish all the details before I go in with my watercolor application. You can see it like a black and white underpainting. This is the same technique I'm also using for my watercolor bird series and I think it gives the artwork a unique style that I really like. The neck and the chest were a bit tricky at some parts, because the fur has different lengths and it also grows in all sorts of directions. It also has color changes. You don't want to fill in the brown and white patches of fur as dark as you will for the black fur. Oh, by the way, if you want to take the time to like the video and subscribe, that really helps my channel more than you think. I cropped the reference from a much larger photo, and especially in some of the darker areas it wasn't always very clear in which direction the fur is growing. But based on the rest of the surrounding fur and a tiny bit of experience, I hope I did a good job. After that, it was time for the watercolor application. For some reason, I always feel a bit rusty with my paints. I was really anxious to start because I was afraid to mess it up, but after some washes of colors, I could breathe a little bit more. To establish most of the details beforehand with a pen really helps. You still have to be careful, but you don't have to be as precise as when you use watercolor only. Just start with a few light washes and slowly add more layers. Even in the white areas, I'm adding some subtle gray tones to indicate the shadow areas and to add some depth. The first few strokes for the dark black fur were nerve-wracking. It looked so dark at the beginning, but once I applied some more, it all made sense. Also, watercolor dries lighter, so I had to add several more layers to achieve the desired result. I had to be a bit more careful with the brown fur. It contains multiple shades of browns and orange and is right next to the white patches of fur. Also, I applied a less dense pen application there, so you can see more detail in a watercolor application. But it was the tongue I messed up with. I wasn't very happy with the outcome of the tongue, so I decided to grab my colored pencils and fix it with a few layers of color. I also used my pencils on some parts of the fur, just enough to add some more depth and detail. After that, it was time to add the whiskers. The whiskers on this dog aren't very pronounced, but there are a few black and white whiskers around the nose I can't ignore. For the white whiskers and some of the white stray hairs, I used my rotring pen with white ink, and for the black whiskers I used my regular fineliner. And that was it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Have a nice day, until next time.